Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with hosts Amy Babinchek, James Kernan, and Karl Palachuk. Produced by Kernan Consulting and for the international MSP community. We are dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional.
Hi, this is Karl. Welcome to another SMB Community Podcast. And my guest today is normally the host. I'm talking today with Mr. James Kernan. Welcome, sir.
Hey.
Welcome to the big show.
I'm on the big show now. I've upgraded. Yep. Hey, good to see you again, Karl.
So James is on the other side of the microphone today because I want to talk about one of the things that he does that some people don't know about, which is mergers and acquisitions. And in February 2025, James is going to be offering a course at IT Service Provider University. And that's a 5-week course. And we're not going to talk about that much other than that. I do want to talk about the topic, though, because M&A is about the hottest thing going right now. Before we do that, James, many people don't know your background other than the fact that you used to be an MSP. And now you're a coachy coach. So tell us about your background. How did you get to be an MSP?
I just stumbled into it. So I worked for I moved from Nebraska after college and moved out to Los Angeles. My roommate at the time was another guy from Nebraska, and he and his brother owned a technology company right in the LA area, the South Bay area. And they sold a lot to government, education, medical. And for 2 years, they both were badgering. He and his brother were badgering me. Oh, you need to come work here, come work here, come work here. And finally, they caught me on a day where I was tired where I was working. I worked for Roadway Express, which was a big, Fortune 100 transportation management company. And, I just was burned out. And I ended up coming to work for them as a salesperson 30 years ago, long time ago. I think almost back then when they had black and white TVs, right? But started with them. They were about $8 million in sales. They sold a lot of product, but we also did, training and professional services installation. And that's really where I learned the industry. Things went really well. I went from sales rep. I think within a month, they made me sales manager. And then within 6 months, I became a VP of sales. And then I ran a branch for a long time, but I was a selling executive the whole time. I loved to sell. So started in the industry back then. We grew from about 8 million to 32 million over a 5-year time frame. I went to another company because they started having cash flow problems. A company called Technology Integration Group in San Diego. We was their VP of sales and was there for about 7 years. We grew from about 32 million when I started, right, or 30-ish million, and we grew to over 315 million. That's really where I learned a lot about M&A because we had 4 acquisition of single location MSPs that we brought in underneath our umbrella. And then I had opened 12 branches from scratch. I did all the recruiting myself. Built that model. They just had really strong systems and people in place, but real successful track record there. Got tired of that. A lot of traveling. I was one of 4 partners in the business. Walked away, sold my shares back, and then used that money to buy a small 3-person company in San Diego called Networks Plus. They did network support and CRM solutions, and then they were a small 3-person shop, about 400,000 in revenue. And in 3 years, I grew that to over 12 million. And then I sold that. And then I had a really long non-compete. So, that was 15 plus years ago. So that's when I formed Kernan Consulting and kind of moved on the other side of the desk, right, as a consultant. But I had a lot of M&A experience. I had a lot of fast growth experience. So I started teaching MSPs, how to grow their business and become more successful. So that's basically, what I'm doing today, and I love it.
Well, sorry to tell you this after all these years, but Non-competes are not enforceable in the state of California.
Oh my gosh, now you tell me. Jeez.
Oh, well.
Oh,
But
well.
and I will say, in case folks don't know, you are truly a master when it comes to leadership skills and managing teams, and those are not easy things for people to do. And so a lot of us end up doing it, but we're not very good at it. And so just kudos to you. If people don't know, they should dig into your skill sets in that front as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, all right. So that brings you to being a coach, and I think you focus mostly on sales and management side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, growth strategies, revenue generating growth strategies or new revenue streams with people. That's where I will start with someone and start working with the leadership teams. I'm a big EOS fan, so I have an EOS-like program that helps put more structure back into people's businesses and as you grow and scale your business, to me, that's the easy thing, Carl, growing and selling or growing and scaling because sales and marketing was always what I did. It was easy to get more business if you really want it. It was hard to control the growth, I thought. And, my background again, grew from 8 million to 30 million, then another company around 30 million, we grew to 315 million. You you'll learn real quick, how to wrap your arms around things and get everybody on the same sheet of music when you're in those fast growth scenarios. So I love what I'm doing. It is a lot of fun. But one of the big growth strategies is really mergers and acquisitions. And a lot of people don't know about that. So that's what I'm excited to talk about today.
Right. Well, and on the M&A front, I have it didn't used to always be called that. And I think what I've done in the past to grow, and many other people have as well, is I didn't really buy a company, but on several occasions, well, I bought one company, but on several occasions, I bought a list. Like, I don't need your computer. I don't need your servers. I need your clients. And I'm going to keep the ones I want, and I'm going to, get rid of the ones I don't. And so it used to be that, I would just buy
The book of business. Yeah.
the actual business because I don't need your desk. I don't need your right. Um,
Right.
but and only one time did I buy an entire company because I needed their key clients, right? But now a lot of people use it as a growth strategy, as what you said. Like, and so how would you use strategically? Like, why would I buy a business as a growth strategy? Why not just grow my own business?
Well, growing your business is really hard. We all know that. We've been in the industry a long time. You go to all these conferences, and most of them are about growing your business, right? You go back and you try all these things, you sign up for all these programs, and most of them don't work. All right. Growing your business, and there's all sorts of other things that you don't control, like the economy. Okay, inflation rates, all sorts of things. This was an election year. There's all sorts of things that can adversely affect your ability to grow your business organically. A lot of people don't know the other way to grow your business is through acquisition, and people want more accounts. The number one greatest challenge every year in all the surveys, MSPs raise their hand and say their number one challenge, they want more first-time appointments. Their inability to get more first-time appointments. Most of you guys are pretty good once you get face-to-face with a prospect. You can close a deal and get them signed on. Some struggle with that. But the number one biggest problem is really they want more first-time appointments so they can close those customers. So like you just said, when you buy a book of business, you add another 50K MRR to your business, another 100K MRR, that's great, and as long as you don't screw it up, the odds are you can keep all those accounts, and there's an art to that, but, people buy businesses because they want that book of business, they wanna increase their MRR, and another thing, it's hard to recruit great people. And it's another creative way of recruiting a group of people already that are already working well together. You can get great salespeople, great leadership, management. You could get great engineers, and in one fell swoop. So to me, the greatest value really is that, book a business, add revenue, add MRR, and add great people to your organization by doing that.
Right. And so obviously, when we talk about MRR, so monthly recurring revenue, you will get a boost in revenue. Does that necessarily mean you get a boost in profit?
Not all the time. Most most people do pretty well from a profitability standpoint, but this is one of the things you got to look for when you're kind of analyzing if this is a fit for you. If you're a B2B and your price per seats starts at 175 a seat and you're very security focused and a prospect MSP that you're looking to buy sells into the residential markets and they deal with a bunch of grandmas and their price per seat is $49 a seat, that's not a good fit, you know? It's a bad fit. And I've seen some people try to cram a square peg in a round hole, and that's where you can lose money real quick, or it's not a culture fit with the people for whatever reason. That's something that's really important as well. And it's hard to analyze unless you've got experience. And that's one of the things I feel like I'm an expert with. I've been through over 30 transactions. This year alone, I've been involved in 6 transactions. And the I've saved a lot of my customers significant pain by making sure certain things are in place as we go through the process. So there are a lot of things to look out for. My point.
So strategically, is an acquisition a good way to add a product line or to, sort of strategically figure out, okay, I don't want to send all my people to training to learn this new product. But if I buy a company that already focuses on that product, it gets me into that market right away. Is that a
Yeah.
good strategy for some people?
It's a great strategy. And I've always been of the point, I've been involved in a lot of startup businesses and I've been involved in a lot of other businesses in motion. And I kind of use the analogy of like pushing that snowball down the top of the hill. I I'm not the right person to start things from scratch. To me, it's boring. It takes forever to get the ball rolling down the hill. I'm the guy who I like catching that ball in the middle as it's rolling down out of control and then kind of redirect it. I like moving fast. I like growing things quickly. I've been around a lot of that. Um, and, there's a lot of opportunity to move into other markets, to create new revenue streams or new products like you had just mentioned. But to me, normally they would start, or a great way to start that is by buying another business that fits your criteria.
And let's flip it around and look at the other side. So not about buying, but about selling. Um, when do people usually sell? Is it when it's too late? When they did like they're burned out, their revenues sort of been even or going maybe even going downhill a little bit for 5 years, and they're like, I just have to get out of this business. Is that a good time to sell? Because it seems like
No,
it's a good time if you're
no.
trying to buy somebody, but not still if you're trying to sell.
Yeah, yeah. There's all sorts of answers to the question you just had, but to your point, that there's a lot of people that are doing it wrong, and a lot of the content that I'm going to teach in that course that I want to share these real world experiences is you need to get your house in order and get things of the 8 best practices that you need to do now in your business to increase the value before you sell. You need to do that. And I like starting with why. Why do you want to sell your business? What are you going to go do? Start thinking about that. And to really answer the question, a lot of answers I get, is because something's wrong or they're burned out. There are a lot of people that got freaked out during COVID, and rightfully so. It was a tough time, and if you didn't pivot and move quickly, then that was a real tough time, and a lot of people went out of business. But Some people just want to sunset their business because they're at that age. I can help in that scenario. Um, but there's all sorts of reasons. But I like just being real direct and, hey, tell me why you want to sell. I want to know,
Right.
because that's a story that we need to tell the other party.
Well, and you've mentioned on this podcast and other places that sometimes people are just they can't get enough money for their business, and they're better to just run it one more year and walk away than to try to deal with, finding a buyer, because buyers seem primarily interested in larger businesses,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you know.
And I've helped a lot of small MSPs, and there was a small MSP in Florida a couple years ago came to me, and I said, "Hey, there's no reason why you can't implement a few of these things and grow your business. I'd love to help you, but let's grow your business and get your MRR up a little bit, stabilize your team, finish that migration of this new tool, um, fix some of the problems that you've got. Your business will be worth more money." And I did the math for him. And I said, "Hey, let's add up the money. If you wait 2 more years, let's add up the money that you would take out plus the new money that you would gain through appreciation of you implementing these things and increasing the value of your business. Look at the math." And then we ended up selling that business for a higher price at a later date, and it worked out really, really well for him. So, you know, I timing is really important, but, on the front end, you wanna get your house in order, and I don't know if anybody's gonna be 100% ready. I rarely see that, 'cause it can come really quick, but there are some fundamental things you wanna make sure that you have in place, like clean accounting records, clean books, real-time books. You wanna have that. That's one thing that will turn off a a buyer faster than anything is if your books are outdated and wrong.
Ah. Well, and so in the 90s, right? So going back many, many years, uh, I was involved with a number of companies that, were buying, selling, other companies and whatever. And time again, I saw a lot of like the sellers put so much energy into protecting their employees,
Mhm.
their favorite clients. They wanted to get just the right culture. They put all this energy into it. And then one day they're no longer the owner. They got a commitment to stick around for a year or 2, and it suddenly and instantly becomes a business they don't wanna be part of anymore because somebody got rid of all their employees, or somebody, you know, took on some clients they don't like, or fired their favorite clients, or whatever. The owner gets to do whatever they want, right? There is no such thing really as a merger. Somebody is buying somebody else. Somebody is acquiring somebody else.
True, true. Yep, yep. Yeah, I've seen that.
Do you
I've
help
seen
those people after the fact, or do you just like they go afloat, or,
No, absolutely. The coaching and consulting, and that's, to that point after the fact, I'm not gonna turn and run. I'd love to work with people if they wanna work with me, but that's where the hard work really starts, Carl. You know, jokingly, I always tell people like, "Hey, the first thing we're gonna do after the acquisition is nothing." And what and what I mean by that is you don't wanna go in and change your pricing and change the services and the tools, and you don't wanna disrupt the current customers. You keep it invisible to them that a transition just happened, is really what you should do. And then you're gonna maintain that business, and you want to embrace the culture that was already there with the employees, because the last thing you want is a bunch of the employees to quit as well. So you need to embrace all of that, but that should be part of the planning moving forward. And the story really needs to be is you're not gonna go in and do a complete overhaul and rip things apart. You're just gonna add to what they're already doing well, and you're gonna do it better. Maybe faster support, more resources, more service offerings, a deeper line card. We wanna offer more things and better service to those customers to attract more customers and keep the ones that you've got. So that's normally the strategy there.
Well, in some industries, and I'm like, public relations comes to mind, They had an agency model where they might buy an agency. It keeps its name, it keeps its culture, it keeps its client list, da 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 da. They just every year send X amount of dollars to the corporate homeland, right? Um, but here in IT, it tends to be the case that, oh no, we're trying to build our brand. And so we want to, merge the two businesses into one and gobble up another and another and another. And now we've got our brand in many different cities. Does that take a long time? Because it seems like part of that keeping the brand is keeping the processes and procedures consistent. So after you do nothing, seems like you then got to do something, and you got to have a plan to turn it into the company that you want it to be.
Yeah, of course, yeah, in some cases, I would just say back on the logo of the name of the business, if it's a reputable business with a good reputation, they've been around for a long time, and they've got a big account base, I would recommend keeping that name. You could buy the name, keep the name, and then you could just call it, just like, powered by Intel, Dell Computers powered by Intel.
Right.
It could be ABC Computers powered by Kernan Consulting. You could blend the brands in that way. We've done it that way. Some cases, we've just kept the original name. And, if it's not important or insignificant, or maybe they have a bad reputation and we figure that out, you want to, rip and replace and put that in there. But that's all part of the planning. My point about change nothing is you just want to have a strategic plan and do it in phases to make it as invisible as possible to the customers, because you
Right.
don't want to disrupt that business flow, because what you're buying, you want to keep all the revenue that you want to keep and then really add to it. So, that's important.
And many sellers sell at the point where they really want to get out. And yet the big money is often in, sticking around for some period of time. But very often, even that, if it's 1 year, um, it's hard for somebody who was an owner for 10, 15, 20 years to
Right.
become an employee even for 12 months. And
Yeah.
so, is that a legit thing that should be considered when you're selling? Is like, I really want to just get out, and even though that's going to cost me some money.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to figure out as fast as I can, what their long-term plans are, and then if they have the personality that it would be okay to stay involved in the business. It makes your business worth more money. What most buyers want is you to stick around a little while and help with the transition at the minimum. And we would just form a consulting agreement, might be 3 months, might be 6 months. I mean, you should be paid for that. You don't wanna do it for free. So we'll put together a consulting agreement outside the purchase agreement for you to stick around for a period of time, and then we'll set, expectations of what that looks like. Is it
And is
part-time,
that
full-time, and what would you do?
as an employee or as a contractor?
As typically as an employee or a contractor, we could do it different ways. In some cases, if they want that individual for whatever reason, they may grant back stock and they can become a shareholder of the new entity. I've seen that happen a lot. It just really depends on what the seller wants and what they're motivated. Again, that's one of the things I try to figure out, and I'll disclose that in the memorandum if I'm representing them to buy. It's like, hey, here's the seller's motivation to sell. Here's what their story is. And yeah, they're willing to stick around. They're going to do a non-compete, but they'll stick around for 3 to 6 months to help out with the transition. Or they would maybe like a long-term home and they don't mind being an employee. Most business owners don't like being employees. That's why we're entrepreneurs. But I have, believe it or not, Carl, I've seen several examples of that working really, really well, where they've got some power, some authority. Maybe they run a department, or maybe they run that branch, and they can be highly successful and still be the leader and do well.
Right. And so when you were doing the buying and selling, it
Yep,
was almost 11 years ago. You were a young punk, nothing
I
personal, but
was.
uh, are there a lot of young sellers these days? Or is it all
There,
people ready
there
to
are.
retire?
Yeah, there's young and old. And, now that I'm older or more mature, as we call it, right? Um, you see that, there's a big age difference, and that doesn't, bother me. And, that's just part of the culture of what people are looking for. I remember like it was yesterday, the very first transaction that I was involved with. I remember stepping into we bought, when I was at Technology Integration Group, the president and I flew over to Honolulu, Hawaii, and we bought the microwave of Honolulu. And we'd already, the deal was basically executed, and we were there the next day, and we were to go address the staff and talk to everybody. They had like a purchasing agent, and then they had a bookkeeper that was no longer there. That wasn't part of the transaction. But I think there was like another 20 plus people in the room. And I remember we get there, and the president kind of let me walk into the conference room first, and he didn't say anything. And I remember, you kinda go right from this long flight from LA to Honolulu, and then you're tired, you go straight from the airport to this office, you walk in the door, and then you walk in a conference room, and then you've got, like, 20 sets of eyes staring at you. I just remember the feeling I had. I was looking at everybody, and I was excited to be there. At first, I didn't know what to say, 'cause we hadn't really prepped on this, and I didn't know we were gonna walk straight into a meeting.
Right.
And I remember looking at everybody, Carl, and I just saw that they were afraid, and they didn't know what was gonna happen. So the first thing I said, I would go, "Hey, the good news is, uh, everybody in this room has a job, and congratulations." I made it a positive, and I said, "Hey, now you're part of TIG. We wanna embrace your local culture, and we wanna grow things, but we're gonna take everything that you guys are doing great, and we're gonna add to it and make it better." So, I remember when I said everybody has their jobs, the energy in the room shifted, and it was it was like, "Ah, okay." Because they didn't know what was expecting, and put yourself in their shoes. That's what people are thinking,
Oh,
What are you gonna change? Do I have a job? Do I get a pay cut or what? So you wanna, your people are a really important asset. You wanna embrace that and make sure uh, they understand what the plan is.
in your experience, and we're almost out of time, but in your experience, do buyers and sellers both equally take the employees into consideration as human beings?
For the most part, more of the sellers, like you said a moment ago, the sellers really care about their employees because they have the personal relationships with them. They probably care a little bit more. And there's a lot of emotions that go with that too. If you're ever selling your business or you have it and you're thinking about it, this is real. I mean, I've seen tears and people freaking out. There's a lot of, unless you know what's coming and I can help you through that process, it's a very emotional process. I'll just say that. When you're the buyer, it's more of a numbers thing. Okay. And does this make sense financially? Does this make sense, big picture? I mean, you care about people, but it's important on both sides. So, and there's one other thing I wanted to highlight and say, a lot of the transactions I've worked with people on were little or no money down. They were small acquisitions of an MSP, might be 2 or 3 or 4 people, and there was no money put down. It basically was, them hiring the people, taking over all their accounts, and think of it like you hired a salesperson and you're just paying a commission on all the business that comes over to you. You make a commission payment after you get paid, you make a commission payment back to the old owner as an earnout, and, there's a formula I can show, in that course that's how I did a lot of those transactions. So there were a lot of those that worked out really well for little or no money down.
Right. Well, and there's a million ways to do a deal, right?
Yeah, yep.
So, and so final question, when should people who are selling start thinking about it and engaging in the process? Is it 5 years before, 2 years before, 6 weeks before? I mean, it's not 6 weeks, but How soon
Well,
did somebody start looking at it?
my answer would be it should be today. You should start thinking about it today. And I joke and say that the missing chapter in everybody's business plan is the exit plan. Okay, how many of you have succession plans or exit plans as part of your business plan? Hardly anybody does.
Right.
All right. I want to create that chapter for you, and I want you to start thinking about what that looks like. It might be a longer time frame, but you want to implement these best practices, make sure that you get the business as ready as you possibly can. And your business is worth a lot more money without you running it, okay, without you in it. So you want to document, automate as much as you can, document those policies and procedures, get your team trained up, delegate as much as you can off your shoulders. So the business kind of runs itself. You don't run it. The business runs itself. Those are key things that people are looking for. So
And that
that,
certainly helps on the quality of life front as well.
yes,
That's
yeah,
another interview.
yeah, exactly.
Very good. Well, we're basically out of time. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, thanks for being, thanks for letting me be on the program on this side of the table. It's kind of fun to talk about. I love mergers and acquisitions, and I would encourage you to check out the courses, or I'm speaking a lot at different industry events around the country on M&A, but it's learning from people's experiences and real world stories are going to put you in a position to win. So I encourage you to check it out.
Very good. And you can see all the details at itspu.com. And the class is just called Mergers and Acquisitions for MSPs. So very good. James Kernan, thank you for being with us today. And I think that will do it for this S&B Community Podcast.
Great. Thanks, Carl. The SMB Community Podcast is brought to you by Kernan Consulting, your mergers and acquisitions experts. Since 2006, we've been through over 30 transactions, and just this past year, we've been involved in over 6. So if you're interested in either buying, selling, or valuation information, please reach out. I'd love to talk with you. There's a ton of activity going on, and you can be a part of it. Reach out for more information at KernanConsulting.com.